was the last time we cut your hair? Your hair is really long right now.
About 6 weeks.
6 weeks. How often do you get your hair cut?
About then, about 6 weeks.
Once every 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Hey there, I'm Andy, this is Dan. We're at the Philadelphia Barber Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be doing a classic scissor cut with a low taper in the back. I'm going to start with a 4. I'm going to start with the taper on the back of his neck. I'm going to start with a 4 because I am going to be manually fading this in. I'm not going to be using a guard on the side of his head. So the 4 allows me to get to a length that I can do that myself without utilizing any guards. And I'm not really going past his ear. It's kind of where the nape of the neck stops. So this is a 3. I'm just going to start fading down. And I open my 3 and blend it into that 4 that I just had. Don't bring it up too high or else you're just going to keep fading up. Grab a 2. Same thing, keep it a little lower. Open her up. He's got some cowlicks back here as well, so we're going to kind of be playing around with that with the different angles the closer we get to the skin. After I do a 2, I go straight to my 0 and I make my first initial line. You see here with his cowlick, if you go up right there, that's not taking anything off. So you got to flip it over, kind of go down with it, and look at where you want to be. I'm going to grab my 1, and I start with a 1 open here. I don't want to bring the 1 too high. So I make my guideline with the 1.5. And I'm kind of using the corner because I don't want to just keep bringing up and up and up. I want it to be as natural as possible. Then I close it and fade in that line that's left over. There's still some weight here, so I'm going to grab my 1.5 and open that, which is basically a 2. Which is already right here. But just to be sure, I'm not going to go too high. I want to check that and see where I'm at with it. Then close. Sometimes when there's a cowlick and it's a little bit clumpy here, you can't do much when you have a guard on the clipper. So I'll just take it and you see what's left over there. Just kind of get that out. So we have our taper that we wanted here, when the 4 is kind of up in there, so we need to fade that out with clipper over comb. And you can see where we need to cut there. This is longer than here, so just follow that line. I'm going to come back around with scissors later. This is mostly a scissor cut. So I want this to have as much texture and flow as possible. But this is just to get the initial bulk off. Now that we have that back taken care of, I'm going to be taking care of the bulk right here. I don't want to take too much length off of here just yet. If you go too short on his hair, it sticks out. He's got really, really thick hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trimmer and just go around his ear with it. You can see how much that's overhanging on his ear. And I'm going to even it up to where we just were here. So that arc around his ear, that's what we're going to take off. And I'm using Wall Mag for this. For the clipper before, it was the Wall Cordless Designer. So I just kind of took that weight out there. I'm still going to take out some more with my shears after I wet his hair. I'm also going to be coming around and making a line, but I want to match this other side first. Since his hair is swept to this side, I'm going to put this in his face real quick to kind of get it out of the way. You can clip it up if you want to. I'm just going to kind of give him a little cute little guy there. And then do the same thing on this side as I did on the other side. I'm going to come back to these sideburns, so don't think that I'm just going to leave them all weird. They're going to get taken care of. at the end. You could do what I'm doing with shears as well. I prefer to do it with a trimmer because I'm just gonna take it and go around the ear and clean it up anyways, and I already have the tool in my hand. Be sure to not go too high with this line, especially with the longer hair, or else it's gonna look a little silly, a little bulky around the ear, and then it will kind of mess up the fade that you just did yourself, and it won't look as smooth and clean. And the more you brush down, the more little hairs that you'll see that you need to get. Are you gonna shave tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably tonight.
So I'm gonna edge off his sideburns because he's usually clean shaven. So I'm gonna give him a little bit of a guideline in order to shave. And you can kind of see his cheekbone right here. And also kind of where it starts to disconnect a little bit, where it's a little bit more sparse. So I will just edge off the sideburn there, but I still wanna make sure that it's tapered in and not like as thick as all the rest of the hair and kind of sticking out. So you can taper in that a little bit, but make sure you still have that line for him to shave. Then I always say kind of find this bone back here, and that's where you want your line to come down. Don't go in, just follow the hairline down. Brush it all out. Sometimes with the longer hairs, the trimmer doesn't take right away. So you kind of have to keep going. There's a bug in here. Over it, go down. And I'm not going for like that crisp, clean, lined up look. His hair is a longer hairstyle. So you just want to clean it up to his natural lines. This hairstyle isn't also like gonna be a big drastic change from what we started with. I really just want to clean up and accentuate the good parts of this long hairstyle. Same thing with the sideburn on this side. Cheekbone, go down, taper that in. Go with the natural hairline. I like to use my corner around here so you're not making any harsh lines, like I said before. You can kind of go in and get little individual hairs that just don't belong. I want his hair to have as much movement as possible when he combs it and styles it and runs his hair through it. And if it's too short here and too lined up, it's gonna look a little bit weird and not have that movement that I want. So I'm just checking around and making sure this is all the same length on both sides and it's tight enough, but not too short. Look like Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, so I'm gonna wet his hair and take the length off of the sides that I want. After that, I'm gonna do scissor over comb and blend that in there. And we're gonna take the bulk out of the back as well. So let's spray him down. I always like to wet the hair because you can kind of tell already how it's gonna look when you style it and when you put some product in it. It gives it a little bit of a hold. Like this side, you can see how that's pushed back already. So I want these sides to match as much as possible. Well, I want it to be symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take a clip and right at the corner of his head here, I'm just gonna separate this for now. And get that out of the way. So if you look at him head on, his part's a little bit higher because his cowlick is right here. So I have to have his part higher in order for it to lay properly. That's why you can see this is higher than this side. But I want to focus on these lengths being the same before we move on to the top. I really don't want to make it too short here, or else, like I said in the beginning, it's going to stick out. So you can kind of see where the shortest part is here and the longest part is, and I just want to even that up. and then follow my guideline here. We're gonna come back to that blend after, but I'm just gonna keep moving my way around his head. And it gets really thick and long back here. He does kind of have a crazy cowlick, so I do like it on the longer side, but not too long. We wanna make it as even to the sides as possible. And then move to this side and do the same thing. Shortest area here. And then we're gonna come around and meet those two sides that we just did. I'm holding the hair at a 90-degree angle. That's gonna create more layers in the hair rather than holding it down. That would have created more length on top, but you can see the layers here, kind of what we've created. And by holding it at a 90-degree angle and holding it very tight, you can create that layered look and continue it all the way up. So I'm gonna blend in this back that we started in. You can see this is really long right here. This is not, and we wanna have this seamlessly tapered all the way up. I'm gonna start with that bulk, and I'm just gonna make my guideline right in the middle of the head. This is where our 4 stopped and where the shear work begins. A 4 is pretty much a scissor length. 5 and 6 guards you can achieve with scissors. So that's why I stopped with the 4. And this is my guideline here. So that's the length that we want. That's the length that this side is. So just go across. You want your top shear to come down, and this isn't moving. This is following your comb. I'm combing it kind of to the side, to this side, to make sure that it's not too bulky in any which direction. And I'm doing the same thing right here as I did over here. So this is the length that I want, this is what we've got, and we're gonna even that up all the way through. So basically the clippers gave me the guideline here and the trimmer around the ear, and then using my fingers with the shears gave me the top hair guideline, and I'm using scissor over comb to meet in the middle with all of that. Now I'm gonna blend in the sides. I don't want to go up too high. I already have the length up here that I want. I'm gonna kind of push that back and blend this part in. This is too much. Come here. With this hair for him, if it gets too short, it's just gonna stick out and it's not gonna do anything. So I like to keep that a little bit longer. And you can start to see our lines kind of all coming together. Meaning this length is seamless with this length, and so on and so forth. You can always see where you need to go back over. This is the length that we want to continue up, and again, that's at that 90-degree angle. As long as you're at the 90-degree angle, you're not going to be taking too much off. I'm going to grab another clip because his hair is crazy, and I really want to focus on just this section without this hair falling over. So again, we're focusing on this part of the section. We already did this, and we already did this. So we're blending the middle into what we've already done. And same thing as the other side. I don't want to make this too short or else it's not going to have anywhere to go. I'm pretty happy with that length, but I want to make sure he's symmetrical. I'm going to look in the mirror, hold it out, make sure it's even all the way around. Okay, time to move to the top. So I'm gonna re-wet the top just a little bit. His hair kind of dried out while I was doing the sides. We just did the sides with shears And now we're gonna be doing the top with shears. I usually like to use the corner of the head. Some people have little hairs in the corner and you're like, I have no idea where those go. You have to play around with them and also look at where their cowlick is. In the beginning, I showed you where I part his hair because of his cowlick. So usually you find the cowlick and just go straight over. And then if there's these little hairs here that you don't know where they go, just kind of play around with them and look at the part. If it's in line and it's a straight line, you can pretty much tell where it's gonna be going. But if you cut those too short, then they're gonna stick out like this. I'm gonna start in the back because of that cowlick. I don't wanna go too short there. When I style his hair, I push it all back. So if I go too short, that's gonna stick up and it's gonna look silly. Then you can see where I've separated it. His cowlick is here and that's where the top of his hair starts. Got another little cowlick back here as well. I'm gonna take about an inch off. I'm gonna start cutting bluntly first because I want to make sure I don't lose my guideline. I'll come back around and add some texture. You can see where my guideline is here. His hair got pretty long and you can see that the ends got a little frayed too. Have you been blow drying your hair?
I have not.
No, I tell him to and he doesn't.
Yeah, you do.
If you blow dry your hair, it does add a little bit more damage to the ends. So you're gonna have to clean up those ends a little bit more frequently. But he goes, you know, every 6 weeks to get a haircut, so they're gonna get damaged anyways. So once I get to the front section, I pull it down to make sure I'm getting everything that I want. You can kind of see those little damaged ends there. I'm not gonna cut bluntly in the front. I'm still gonna cut the same amount off, but I'm gonna kind of go at an angle here. And pull to the side. And you can see, because that's how his hairline comes. So I'm following the way that his hairline goes. And then kind of come around. And this is gonna create a guideline when I start to blend in the top to the sides. And now I'll pull it up. That front section. And find the guideline that I had before, mix with the guideline I put in the front, and even that up. And then just go back through and make sure we're all evened out everywhere. I'm gonna cross-check it. You see that little guy there? And I'm gonna texturize when I cross-check. So we don't just keep bringing the length down and down. Again, I don't wanna go too short on this cowlick area, but there is a little bit of length that I don't want there. So instead of bluntly cutting, I'm also gonna texturize right there. Now I'm gonna blend the top into the side here. And I'm gonna use my fingers and my shears so I can see where the guidelines are more and where that ridge is. And I wanna meet this length to this length. And I'm still holding it at a 90-degree angle. I'm kind of, it's on a different part of the head, which makes it a little bit more difficult. It's where the head starts to round over rather than just kind of have more of that up and down shape. Up and down shape, is that a shape? I think it makes sense. I'm gonna work my way down the head. You can see it's still a little bit thick here, but I don't wanna do too much or else this is gonna be shorter than that side. I'm gonna be checking it with scissor over comb after this, but I just wanna make sure I've got all of the long pieces out of there. So he's pretty much where I want him. I'm just kind of going around and checking, making sure everything is where it belongs. Okay, so I'm gonna blow dry. And I can always check the hair a lot more after I blow dry it. I'm probably going to be taking my texturizing shears and taking some weight out, maybe where it's a little bit bulkier, but I don't want to do too much. I don't want to make his hair too frizzy or cause any more damage or anything by over thinning it. So I'm going to be using a grooming spray. Sea salt sprays are also great for this. Salt sprays will add a little bit more texture to your hair, give it a light hold. So when you blow dry it, it will hold in place without giving you like a helmety hairspray type deal. I like to add a little bit extra in the front. That's where we want a lot of our volume when we style it. I like to use a vent brush. This allows the air to pass through the brush and create more volume that way. I also like that there's not a lot of bristles on it, so when I brush it back, it combs through the hair kind of effortlessly. And the direction I'm going is back. The hair is almost dry, so that was on high heat. I'm going to switch it to the middle heat setting. This will allow the hair to form better and have a little bit of a natural hold just by with the heat setting that you're drying it with. Okay. So I'm going to take a little bit of bulk out of his hair now. Thinning shears, texturizing shears, and still comb it back. That's how we're styling it. Probably going to do a little bit more of this back here because I didn't want to take too much length off the back area, but I do want to take the bulk out and make it a little bit lighter. It tends to get really heavy and dense back here. So you can get away with making it lighter. And you're doing the same motion as, your scissor over comb. But instead of just doing the ends, you can kind of get in there a little bit more. Here he has, you can't really see it because he has a longer hairstyle, but everyone has this bone in the back of their head. Some, it's more prominent than others. And it's a little bit harder to fade sometimes if that's sticking out. So you can kind of see that, it's a little bit darker right there because it's like a cliff, it kind of shoots off and shoots down. So you can spend some extra, look down again like that. There you go. You can spend some extra time back there just to make sure they're not going to see the back of their head, but a lot of other people are going to see the back of their head, and that also has to look good. Again, I'm combing kind of in all directions because you never know how they're going to kind of be playing with their hair or how the wind is going to blow. The same thing on this side. You can kind of take some weight out in the corners of the head. And I really like all of that movement there, especially when you run the fingers through the hair. It's like piecey, but even at the same time. And again, I know some people really like more of a tight, clean, lined look over the ear, but that's not what I'm going for here. I could have achieved this by taking my regular shears and going around, but I used my trimmer here, and that just gives it a little bit more of a natural look. And same with the sideburns. Some people like the sideburns taped in a little bit more. He is usually clean shaven right now, so I edged it off for him so he can shave tomorrow. So I'm going to use some hair tonic. Love hair tonic. It takes some of the puff out of the hair, grooms it a little bit more. I like to especially get it in the sides here, where it tends to get a little bit puffier. And then just put the excess in the top. And take the comb and comb it through. With this style, I almost kind of like it when little pieces kind of fall down. They're a little bit fun. But then it's still all in line. I'm gonna clean him up. I need to shave his neck, get all this hair off of him, and all the hair off of his face, and then he will be ready to go. I do wanna clean up these little guys here. You see that? Those are a little bit long for my liking. Those are never really gonna go all the way back, so you can just kind of clean those little guys up. I'm gonna check that on the other side too. And I'm not lining him up. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just getting the little frills that don't belong. There, okay, perfect. So I always end with a hot towel on the neck. Softens up the skin a little bit. Feels really good, especially after a long week, a long day. I'm gonna put the hot lather on his neck, rub it in. I already prepared my straight razor. There's a new blade in there, sanitized. I like to just kind of wipe it off. Some people have moles, that's just a freckle, but some people have moles back here, and if you don't wipe that off and you just go right away, you can cut into their mole, and that's always a terrible time. There's like a mole right there. And that way you can feel for it before you bring a blade to their neck. Some moles are tricky too, like they're skin colored, you know, they're not always obvious. Not all moles are created equal. Make sure you get all the cream off of their jaw. All right. So he's not a transformed man, but he's a very cleaned up and handsome man. And that's what I was going for. I really just wanted to get a lot of the hair off the ears, clean it up back here, especially in the summertime. It gets really hot and crazy back here. So adding a taper is a really nice option to a longer haircut like this. Added some texture to the top so it has some flow, but definitely left a lot of length on top. Left a lot of length here so you can push it back.
Cool.
Ta-da! What's up everyone, I'm Andy, this is Jason. We're at the Philadelphia Barber Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Today I'm going to be doing a high and tight skin fade with a little bit of a beard trim. So I'm going to start with a 2 up here just to kind of get the bulk down. I want to start with a good base. So I'm just going to go all the way around kind of to the crown of his head. I don't want to go in too much. I don't want to cut into his hair. I just want to follow the shape of his head here. So I'm not going in, but rather going kind of up and away. And I'm going to be coming back around later and fading this in with clipper over comb so we don't miss anything. I'm going to grab my 1.5 and go a little bit lower with it and kind of fade it into what I just made with my 2. I'm going to start open. 1.5 open is basically a 2. So just still keeping that base where I want it without doing anything too drastic. But this is a high and tight, so the skin fade is going to come up pretty high anyways. But you're just kind of getting the feel of the shape of the head when you do this. I just closed it, and going back over that to tighten it up. I'm also following the growth of his hair. So, you know, instead of just coming down like this, you can kind of see, for example, his hair grows kind of sideways like that. So instead of just, you know, going up and getting it, I need to go here at an angle. Okay, so now we have a good base to fade our skin fade into. So I'm going to take my 0, bend the ear down, and I'm going to be following his head shape here. You know, everyone's head kind of bulges out a little bit more right here. That's just how the skull is shaped. So you'd like to start at the temple, kind of go around. I'm going to be fading his beard in as well. But I don't want to bring this line down too low because we like to keep his beard nice and full. Bananas! Always sanitize your comb after you drop it. So anyways, I'm going to be fading down his beard later, but I like to keep his beard nice and full and not go in too tight. I'm not going to, be fading it all the way down here. So I don't want to bring my zero line too low. And I just opened it so I can make that fading process a little bit easier for me when I get there. Now I'm going to continue all the way around. Now when I do skin fades, I like to do one side, and then instead of, coming back all the way around, I go to the other side so I can look in the mirror and see, how high I went up, and I can look here and match that exactly, and then we'll come back around and even it up in the back. So we got to the back. This is pretty even. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to take it in the middle. I'm looking for his bone back here. I'm going to go above the bone. The bone that's on the back of his head, his isn't that bad at all, but if you keep the fade either, if you keep the fade too low or really low, it works out because you don't have to fade too much on that bone. And if you take it higher, you also don't have to fade on that bone. But if you put your fade line right on the back of their head, sometimes it gets a little tricky to fade on the back of their head where that bulges out there. So I took it a little bit higher than that part of the head. So now that I have the guideline for the skin fade, this isn't as clean as I want it to be. So I'm going to be taking my trimmer and cleaning this. I'm also going to be taking my foil shaver, box razor, whatever you want to call it, and making that super smooth so it's extra clean. Be sure to not go too high with this either. You don't want to ruin the line that you just made because this is, shorter than the zero on the clippers. You can just kind of flick up so you don't create too harsh of a line. I don't like going like this. Some people like to do that, but then it just creates more work for you to fade in that line. But if you come around and get it close and flick up as you're doing it, then you're fading and not creating more work for yourself. Skin fades are a little bit more tedious just because you have to get it so clean. But it is worth it in the end because they look great and clean. Clean. I'll keep saying the word clean. How about that? Clean. Clean. So now I'm going to bring around the foil shaver. With the foil shaver, you need to make sure that you got down to a really short level here. If the hair is too long, this isn't going to catch. So that's why I like to take it down with the trimmer first. Just be aware of that. This thing always sounds like a lawnmower, so I always have to ask and make sure it feels okay on their skin. I'm keeping the box shaver pretty low, foil shaver, whatever you want to call it. I want this to be, it's going to be a high and tight skin fade, but it's going to gradually become closer and closer as you get to the bottom. I'm going to be cleaning this with a straight razor though, so if you see all those little fuzzies, I'm going to be there. I'm going to get to them. So I have my clipper open, no guard, and I'm going to make another guideline now. About half an inch above that guideline that I made initially with my zero. And as I get to the line that I want, I'm still flicking up a little bit because I also want to prepare myself for the next step in the fade and not make any harsh lines that are hard to fade out. So again, I do that side and then I turn them around, do the same thing on this side. I'm painting you like one of my French girls.
Keep it clean.
So I didn't tell you what my step was. I'm sorry. So I was starting open, right? And now I close it halfway. And I'm fading in this line. I just got so involved in your hair. It just captured my attention. Sorry. So I'm fading in this line, flicking up because I don't want to keep bringing the fade higher and higher and higher. I want to utilize the guidelines that I created for myself and have the clipper just open enough, just closed enough where I'm in the middle of this guideline and that first guideline. I'm kind of playing with my lever a bit. You know, if I have it, say, right here, and it's not fading in like that little bit right there, I'll just close it a little bit and use my corner and see if that gets it to where I want it to be. And if I do close it a little bit more, I make sure to keep, you know, where the blade is lower. So I'm not closing it a little bit more and then bringing it all the way up here to fade it in, or else you're just going to keep bringing it up and up. And then if I open it all the way just to go over it again, then I'm going up to that line. And you just kind of have to get a feel for it and see where the dark spots, I can't say that, I did that last time, dark spots, where the dark spots are, and figure out what level on the clipper works for those spots. And for me, the fading without the guard on was the most challenging and is still the most tedious part of a skin fade for me. But once we put our one guard on, which we're about to do in a second, it is smooth sailing. One is on, clipper is open. So if you remember, this was our 1.5, this is kind of a 2 up here, but I made our baseline with the 1.5. So 1 open is a little bit shorter than a 1.5, but not by much. So we're gonna start there. And we're slowly starting to fade this line in. Again, go with the way his hair is growing, so that's why you see me going this way, not up. I want to catch all the hairs evenly. I'm going to close it to have my full 1 and go back around. I'm not going to go as high as I was with that 1 open. Okay, so we still have a little bit of a line here. Again, the dryer got us. We still have a little bit of a line here. So I'm going to take the half, open it, which is a little bit shorter than a 1. Same exact deal as we did with that 1 guard, opened it a little bit shorter than a 1.5. Go up, keep it a little bit lower because you don't want to keep bringing it up and up and up. Now I'm going to close it to have the full half. I'm going to be really careful here because this is basically the last part of the fade that we need in order to get this line out. So I don't want to just go all the way up with it. Kind of delicately get that line out. I just opened it again just to make sure that I'm not going to go too high with the half. Closed, full half. Open it just to be sure. I open it, and if it doesn't take, then you just close it a little bit more. You can use your corner if you see any dark spots, but you don't want to go with the full line of it. I'm always checking it in the mirror as well. The mirror never lies, and will always show you the dark spots that you've missed, but I'm pretty happy with this. So we still need to blend this in, and I still want to trim the top of his hair. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my comb and my clipper without any guard on it. And this was the corner, this is the corner that I want to fade it. So I'm going to just kind of scoop it out. This comb, the position of it, is going straight up and down from his head. You know, if you take it and just go straight up. The cowlick part gets a little tricky, but if they had a good haircut before, then the cowlick shouldn't be too out of place. I like to keep the top part of his cowlick long so it can go in with the rest of his hair, but then I fade in the bottom part with the rest of the fade because that grows down anyways, and if it grows out, it's not going to get too frilly or weird. It's going to grow out with the rest of his hair. If this was a lower fade, then I wouldn't be cutting the bottom part as short. I would be keeping it long with the rest of it, but because this is a high skin fade, I'm gonna actually get that with my shears because I don't want the clipper to go in too much and ruin the work that I've done there. So I'm grabbing these hairs by putting my comb in and bringing it out. Kind of grabs them and makes it easier for you to get it with the clipper without cutting into their hair. Okay, so there's still a little bit of a ridge right here. I'm gonna come back around with my scissors also, but for now I just kind of wanna make sure that I get as much as I can with the clippers. And by going like this, it's just a little bit more effective in getting that corner off. And when I look in the mirror, I don't want to see, a big ridge coming out here. I want to make sure that it's flush to his head and framing his face properly. But I will come back to that for the millionth time. So I'm going to wet his hair because I'm going to start with my shear work. I really like the length in the front of his hair. I want to texturize it a little bit, but it's really long back here for his hairstyle anyways. So I'm going to be taking about 1 inch off from the back of the top of his head. Make my first section. It's a little long. You said it was bothering you a little bit too, right? It was a little bit hard to style. Yeah. But if you go too short here, then it's going to stick up and they can't really do anything with it. So I'm going to start with about 1 inch. Or maybe like 1.5 inches. And here I will kind of hold it out to an angle because I want it to look a little bit more blended over here rather than kind of just undercut up to the side. And I'm just going to work my way through and take about that much off. But as I work my way to the front, I'm going to start taking less and less because I don't want to take that much off the front. So gradually I'll start taking less here so this can remain. If you were to be cutting the hair at an even length, you would make your guideline and keep following that guideline. But since the front's going to be a little bit longer, that doesn't apply as much. But we'll still be cross-checking it to make sure that the graduation is achieved properly. So I just want to cut the edges off here to get the dead ends off, and then I'm going to texturize it. So hold it straight up, take the points of your scissors, and just kind of cut into it. You can gain some speed the more you get used to doing this, but if it takes a little bit of time to get that, you can go slowly. Don't chop into your finger. We've all done it, but it sucks. So be careful. So I want to cross-check this, make sure that the front is indeed longer than the back. There's just like a couple ridges that I'm evening up. Nothing too crazy. This corner is also an issue for some people. Sometimes, it sticks out and they don't know what to do. I like to just go with the hair pattern. So his pattern goes around like this. And I'm going to make it flush with the head here because I'm going to be blending in this as well. But it's also kind of nice to leave it a little bit long so it has room to sit back with these hairs. And this was that ridge that I was coming around with the clipper over comb, but I didn't want to cut in too much with the clipper, and you can get more detailed work by just taking these little edges off. And I'll probably texturize it a little bit more after I blow dry it. I want to see how it looks dry first. And back to this cowlick area that I said I was going to come back with shears. You See this like little tail? I don't want that there. But I want these here because those belong with the rest of his hair. This can be with the fade. Just take your comb, get in there, get your shears in there. Same with this side. I don't want to give him a full undercut or anything, but I also don't want it to look messy up at the crown of his head. I don't like to do any strict lineups on the forehead, but sometimes it looks a little, you know, not clean there. So I'll just take my shears and get those frills. Sometimes if you hold the long hair back too, you can kind of see any messy pieces, and I'll just go around with my shears and snip those off. So I'm not going to blow dry his hair yet. I want to move on to the beard. After I blow dry his hair, I'm going to make sure that that blend is all good, but I want to clean up his face. Okay, so I'm going to start with a 3 going down with the grain of his hair. I'm just going to be, you can see it's a little too much right here. I want it to frame his face. His cheekbones are here, and I want to bring it down, but not in. I don't want to, I want to bring it in too much because his beard is nice and full, and then I'll just be cleaning up the length that he already has. This is a 3. And I'm just going down. If his beard was a little straighter and not as fluffy, I would probably be using mainly shears right here, my scissors. But since his beard gets so fluffed out, you kind of have to shape it. I'm going to grab a 2 and do the same thing but not go down as far. Because now we're just going to be fading this area in. And then the rest I can do with my trimmer and just my comb. And I'm bringing this part of the comb out more. It's not like flush with his head, or else you're going to put a big hole in his beard. And we don't do that on Beardbrand. Sometimes it gets a little tricky right here because the ears are in the way of the comb, but you can kind of push on the ear. It doesn't hurt you, right?
No.
You're fine. He's okay. Now I want to clean up this area a little bit more. Just follow the hairline. I don't want to bring the line in too much, but this goes out a little bit. So I just want to clean up those hairs that kind of are growing close to his ear. And bring a straight line down. And since I'm already on this side and I have the trimmer in my hand, I'm going to clean up his lines here. Flip the trimmer over. I'll come back around with the straight razor here at the end. To kind of clean up these lines. I just don't want to get too close to his beard and bring his lines too low because we have them at a good spot right now. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And now, so you saw that my comb out like this on the other side. Since we're on the opposite side of his face now, same motion, it's just the tip of the comb is up here. So, see, still out. Love that train. Good old Philadelphia. Clean up the cheeks again. That's all I really want to do for the mustache. Just make sure it's even. have a long hair here. Now I just want to shape his beard. I don't want to take much length off. I just want to make sure it's clean, get the frizzies off. I want to look at him head on for this just so I can see the side, what's sticking out, what I need to cut. And same on this side. And I just want to trim what's not neat and tidy down here. Down a little bit, yeah. Got a little unruly in the back underneath, so I just want to kind of get that out. And then follow the shape of his jawline, you know, but without going up to his jawline. You're creating a face shape almost. Someone's loving your beard.
I was going to say, they just saw your beard.
Loving it. So his beard breaks a little bit right here naturally. And I don't want to bring it up too much because he has such a great full beard right now. But that's totally normal. You know, not everything is always symmetrical or even naturally. But we can kind of let it all come together and trim it accordingly. As long as it's the same shape, everything's fine. If he wanted to make it look more full and even, we would probably bring his beard line up to about here, but he likes to have a long, full beard, so we're not going to do that. But if that is ever an issue for anyone and they don't like that their beard breaks in a certain area, then you bring up the full beard to right above where it starts to break and then bring it in a little bit more and shape it to that. So now we're going to blow dry his hair. Make sure it's all blended in properly here how I want it to be. I'm going to thin out the back just a little tiny bit, and then I'll clean him up back here with the straight razor and the cheeks as well. So I just blow dried his hair. All I really want to do is just blend this in a little bit more and take some thickness out of the back. So I'm going to take my texturizing shears and just get in these corners a little bit more. Just so it's a little bit more of a seamless blend. I don't want to take too much out of this cowlick. I don't want it to pop up. And it's a little thick back here, so I just want to take these and go into it like that. Now that's not as puffy, doesn't have as much volume, because we want the volume to be in the front. And I'm pretty happy with this, with how this looks on this side as well. So we don't really need to do much. I'm just going over this for good measure. So all there's really left to do is shave back here and shave his cheeks. Do you see anything in it? Oh my God, I'm so tired. Great. Thank you, God. Okay. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Okay, let's do it. Let's clean your neck up, clean your cheeks up. All right, so I'm just cleaning up his neck with the straight razor. Getting these hairs, just so they don't pop out of his shirt. I also kind of want to just get this corner here as it comes in. He has sensitive skin, so I don't want to go down too far and give him any razor burn. Make sure you're stretching the skin nice and tight so the razor doesn't catch on the skin or anything. Now I also want to get his cheeks and just make sure that that line is nice and tight. You have been faded, you have been beard trimmed, you have been somewhat shaved. I'm not putting any hair product in his hair or anything. It's pretty late here in Philadelphia and it's bedtime, so we don't want to put anything in there. All right, feel good?
It's awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Andy. This is Steve. We are at the Philadelphia Barber Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be trimming his hair and trimming this beard of his as well. All right. I'm going to be trimming his hair. I'm going to be using mainly scissors. I really don't want to use my trimmer that much. All I'm going to be doing with the trimmer is kind of lining up around his ears and getting these little baby hairs down here. But I really want to just make this a scissor cut and kind of trim up his hair a little bit. So I'm going to wet it down. His hair likes to get really puffy on the sides. You can kind of see it right here. So I'm not going to be going too short there, but I want to wet him down first. He was wearing a hat, so there's kind of a kink back here. If I were to be using clippers on his hair, usually when people have a hat on, it's kind of annoying to have this little crease back here, but since we're using scissors, it's fine. So getting his hair wet allows me to kind of push that puffy part over, since I don't want to go too short there, and I really want to focus on cleaning up around his ears here. He has these little curls. A lot of people, especially if they have beards, these curls get kind of crazy, so we want to get those in nice and tight. Kind of lift it out around the ear. You can see they're still kind of up here, but don't bring it up too high and cut into these long hairs here. Keep brushing those out of the way. You can use a clip if you want, but his hair is long enough where I don't need to. And it's really just about an inch to an inch and a half above his ear that I'm going. Pull the ear so you're not going to be snipping the ear at all, and you can just kind of go around. I'm going to be coming back around with the trimmer just to make sure these little hairs are taken care of. But since you have the scissors, you can grab those. Work your way down the hairline and just follow it here and even it up with what you started. I'm going to switch to the other side. I want to keep making it symmetrical, so I'm going to go over here and do the exact same thing. That way it makes it easy for you to keep in place with which step you're in, so you're not just kind of cutting all over the place. So there's those curls there. You can protect the ear as well by kind of keeping the comb on top of it. You see this part's there? And cutting over. So now I'm going to kind of taper the back of his neck. I really just want to use shears here. A lot of the times I will use my clippers and give him a nice skin fade here, but I want to do a little bit of a longer cut today. So scoop under and take about 1/2 inch off and start your guideline. And then just start going up and take the exact same amount off that you did with your guideline. And you want to keep brushing it down, combing it down, so you can see where your line is. See, this is what needs to be cut. Now, I want to even up this length to this length, but I need to get my guideline for this length first. So I'm going to come, this is just right, see, he pushes all of his hair back. So I'm going to be kind of taking this middle section here and pulling it out at a 90-degree angle. You can see where his split ends are, where they really need to be trimmed. And I'm just giving him a trim, so that's why we're only kind of taking that much off. 90-degree angle. And go from side to side again. Take that exact amount off, staying with the guideline that you just created here. Still have these little wings right here. I never want to go too short on his wings either, or else they're going to pop out as soon as his hair is dry. So as long as you see the wings that are coming out, and instead of pulling them out to like an angle this way, you really kind of want to pull them back because his hair goes all back. And so now I want to meet that length with what we started with down here. Can you look down a little bit? Yeah. So right here, it's a little long. And I do like to brush it in all kind of different directions so I can see where the dark spots are. It's kind of one right there. You can go over it and just trim it up. So I'm just gonna trim the top now. After the top, I'm gonna work my way to the sides. But for now, we're gonna take this front section, about 2 inches from the front of his head, bring it straight up, take about 1 inch off. The ends are kind of bad right here. And then start working your way back. Don't grab the whole head of hair and just start bringing it up, or else you're not going to be following your guidelines at all, and your guidelines will be useless. So if you bring about another 2-inch section, starting from the first section that you created, bring that straight up, and you can see your guideline right there, and keep following that. And do that again. So I've reached his cowlick, and here I want to even up this length to the length that we created when we were holding the hair at a 90-degree angle here. Brush it all back, and then grab kind of the same amount of thickness as when we did here, but more kind of right in the center of his head there. And then you'll be able to see that angle there that we need to cut off. This length, and now we need to bring it all the same. Check the length that you made here. Make sure it's flowing nicely with the top length. If you see any corners like that, just needs to be evened up. His hair gets really tricky on the sides. You've heard me say a million times, I don't want to go too short here. So I kind of, with his hair specifically, I like to keep this a lot shorter than this length, and I'm not gonna blend it in completely. This isn't gonna be like a seamless blend on the sides. It almost needs to overlap so he can still push it back. And so I'm just gonna trim it. You can see his split ends there that need to be trimmed. And then make sure that it's, these lengths can be blended in with this, and that's fine. This meaning the top. Split ends, 90 degree, but still kind of to the back. And the direction that I comb his hair so it will lay down is back and kind of down. And then where it starts to become blended is this area here. So it's more or less kind of undercutty right here, but that's strategic so his hair doesn't pop out. So we're gonna do that on this side too. Again, this area is where it's gonna become more of a seamless blend. Sometimes you have to get creative when it comes to people who have, you know, crazy hair on the sides or just a cowlick that won't quit. The last thing that you want to do though is just cut it off or make it shorter. It may look good for a couple of days, but as soon as they go home and their hair starts to grow out, they're not going to know what to do, and then they're going to hate you. So I'm just kind of playing around with his hair, making sure I can kind of flop it to that side, and I like the length. I also want to make sure it's even, so I like to just kind of pull it out. I'm not going to take that much off. So I'm going to come back around with the trimmer around his ears and get under here after I blow dry his hair, but we need to move on to the beard. Okay. So I already blow dried his beard straight. I used Beardbrand's round brush actually. This thing's awesome. It grabs the hair really, really well, and I was able to straighten it out a lot more than as if it were to just dry naturally. And now I can cut it more evenly. His mustache we're gonna leave. I think it's awesome. It's gotten long enough where he can kind of grab it and push it to the side, which is really great.
Okay, I'm gonna voice on this. This is the most awesome mustache.
I agree.
Yep.
I thought you were gonna say something bad. I was like, Greg,
No.
don't mess with me here. Come on.
Oh, come on, guys. You know.
No, look at it. It's so great. So this is getting a little long. The only thing that I kind of want to just trim these little guys so it has more of a flow into the beard because he kind of has the blonde streaks here as well. So I'm going to start by just lining up his cheeks and kind of getting around with the trimmer. We leave it completely natural underneath. Can you look up a little bit for me? I don't touch it down here because his beard is so long that we don't need to. Any unnecessary razors or maintenance, is unnecessary, especially if he has natural nice lines and it doesn't bother him anyway. So I'm going to take my trimmer and go follow his hairline, and you can kind of see the corner of his mouth underneath the awesome mustache. Lift it up, and the line is going to be going towards his mustache in a nice curve. Make sure to not go too low. And you really just want to make a guideline for yourself. I'm going to be coming around later with the straight razor to crisp up the lines a little bit. And for these hairs, you can kind of brush them forward. And get those. But I want to get around his ears. Pull his ear back so you can kind of see his jawbone. And don't cut in too much, especially since I'm not lining it up here. We just want to get the things that don't belong and are sticking out. So this is an area that tends to bush out first. A lot of bearded people like to have this kind of faded in with clippers. His is kind of naturally framing his face. So I just want to get the stragglers that are coming out and not take my clippers and make a thin fade and bring it all the way down. And I was going to kind of start that line over the ear that I'm going to come back with later, just so I can get a better shape around the beard. Now I'm going to do that on the other side. Same thing. And if you look at him head on, you can kind of see what I just did and what needs to be done. Don't cut into the hairline, you just want to clean up what doesn't belong. Kind of scoop it out, bring it down. Scoop this around the ear. There's that dryer again. That happened last time too. Again, not lining up the neck, so don't cut into the beard down there. So now we're going to clean up the length down here, and then I'll come back around and clean up kind of what doesn't belong. Again, we're not really touching the mustache. I might kind of clean up the edges here. I'm going to switch to shears. One's specifically made for dry hair. These ones are a little bit sharper, and they're not going to bend the hair. The other ones that I have, they are also for dry and wet hair, but since I have these nice dry cutters from Hattori Hanzo, I like to use them on beards because they just get a little bit more crisp. You can see where the beard is starting to break and is less full. So we're going to bring it up. About 1.5 inches we're going to go up, and it's going to allow his beard to look a lot fuller. 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Greg's nervous. Just kind of pull it down and make your guideline there. I always need to look at them head on to make sure that it's even. You know, if you're kind of standing at an angle here and your head's all cockeyed, it's more of a potential for it to be not even. So I need to kind of get all up in their grill a little bit. Now, can you look up a little bit for me? Right there. Is that comfortable in your neck? That's fine?
That's fine.
Okay. And so I asked him to do that because I need to see the underneath a little bit too. His beard is so long that, you know, a lot of beards are slanted from the chin here, but his is just kind of cascading down all at one length, and I still want to keep it one length in the front. So I need to cut the back as well and even that. Did you put any beard oil in today?
No.
Or nothing?
And we got the beard oil for you.
Some like Billy Mays.
Billy Mays isn't alive, is he?
No, I think, no. May Billy Mays and Harambe rest in peace. Sorry, okay. So I don't want him to hurt his neck by holding it at an angle like that. So I'm gonna put this handy dandy headrest back here. I'm gonna put it at the level of his head and just have him kind of doop, so I can get the underneath even more. Comb it out. And I like to use mainly shears for my beard trims. I think it allows you to give it less of a boxy look, less of a kind of cut out cookie cutter look. If that makes sense. Okay, look in the mirror for me. I'm just checking purely the chin length. His beard breaks a little bit more on this side, so I'm double checking the length even more because it's naturally fuller here, and I'm going to be evening it up with his cheeks and doing that, but it makes it a little bit more challenging to make sure that this is even. I'm happy with that length. It looks a lot fuller here and clean. So go back a little bit for me again. Just find the headrest. There you go. And so he's kind of he's got these wings here a little bit, and I want to slope it more like that without taking, you know, all of his beard off. So you can see kind of that tail right there. And I'm going to go in line with the direction that his beard is going down. So basically go towards his ear. And once you make that guideline, you can follow it all the way down. Brush it out so you're not missing anything. Okay, I'm gonna come back around and kind of get these little guys at the end. But I wanna do that same step, but just on this side. By doing that, it just allows me not to lose my place and to know exactly where I'm putting everything. Like I said before, this side is a little bit more full naturally than this side. So it may look like I'm cutting more off this side than the other one, but it's really just the density. Using scissors also gives you a great deal more of control of where you're cutting. You know, if you take a clipper to it and you're just like, you're gonna put a hole in their beard, and that's not good. So I'm pretty happy with the shape, you know, except for these guys that I'm gonna freehand around. But I just for now want to comb out his beard and make sure the length is good, these wings are taken care of. And so to get these parts in, I, again, have to get really awkward with them and look them right in the face and make them feel super uncomfortable. But I want to be able to see which hairs are popping out. Be careful of their ears during this part too. And I take my shears and really just, their cheekbones here, I really just want to follow where their cheekbone is and go straight up and down. And just keep brushing it out, because the more you brush it out, the more little guys are going to pop up, and just keep following that line. As long as you're following that line still, you're not going to be cutting into the beard too much. You're only going to be cutting what you need. It's kind of like pruning a rose bush. Just want to take off what you don't need, the dead ends. You don't have to get all Edward Scissorhands on them either and go too crazy. Turn them into a dinosaur. I don't know if anyone gets that reference.
I do.
Okay, so you can see how much cleaner that is on that side. Now we gotta do that on this side. So again, straight up and down, cheekbone is right here. You can see what's left over. Watch out for their earlobes. It is raining here in Philadelphia for the millionth time. Why is that? It was 90 degrees today. Okay, so I'm just kind of pruning him around his beard and looking around and making sure nothing's popping up, combing it, really just the details. And I'm pretty happy with the shape. I'm happy with the length. I'm happy that this isn't too tight and faded in, especially because his cheekbones are very prominent right here. You have to tailor the beard to their face shape as well and kind of what's underneath. So if he didn't have kind of bigger cheekbones, it would make a little bit more sense to fade this in tighter. But since his cheekbones are here, you need to have some of the fluff to kind of come down and frame his face, and then also meet the beard at the bottom. So it's all kind of one piece. What I said in the beginning about the mustache, I don't want to take anything off over the lip. I do kind of want to trim these little ends. You see it's kind of blonde here, but it's a little bit darker here, and I just kind of want to blend that in a little bit. So you can just kind of lift it up, take some of those ends off, comb it in, make sure it blends in. Super simple, nothing crazy. Point cut it in there a little bit. There. And that looks a lot more together. I'm gonna do that on the other side. I do also kind of want to get some of the stragglers on his patch right here. And I'm going to take my shears and just kind of cut down with it, because that's the direction his beard's going. Go the direction that it grows. Goes with the grain. Goes with the grain. All those words sound the same. I like the fact that his beard is nicely cut right now. Some want it to look a little bit more natural and not like you just freshly trimmed it up. So you could always point cut it. Don't cut into the beard. Point cut it and texturize it like this. I'm not going to do that with his beard because I really, really like how it looks, especially since the whole point of giving him this beard trim was to cut the dead ends off and to make it look a lot more full. So I'm not going to ruin what we just did. But that is an option. And I'm pretty satisfied. How do you feel?
Yeah, looks really good.
Do you see anything that you want to be different?
No. No, it looks pretty good.
Great. And I think we've achieved, making it a lot more full while just trimming it up and cleaning it up. And that was our goal. At the end, I'm going to be trimming this and tightening it with the straight razor and adding just a little bit of beard oil. But I want to finish his haircut. I always like to finish the haircut. After I do the beard, sometimes when you put someone back with the headrest on, after you've blow dried their hair and styled it and finished it, they'll have this big kink in the back of their head from the headrest. So I'll do the first portion of the haircut that requires it to be wet, and then I'll do the beard, bring them back up, blow dry their hair, and then do the rest, if that is required. So we're gonna do that. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I love hair tonic, especially for hair that pops out on the sides right there. It really helps relax it. And his hair actually dried a good amount while we were doing his beard. So I'm just gonna, for the sake of straightening it out a little bit, I'm gonna add some more water. And with hair tonic, you can put that in wet or dry. So if you add a little bit of water, that's fine. And I'm also gonna be adding salt spray. And Beardbrand hooked me up with the awesome tea tree sea salt spray. And it's I'm shaking it to mix it all up. And it's almost gone, actually. I've been using it so much. This is gonna give it a lot more volume in the front, covering their forehead. I sea salted your nose. It's gonna give you a lot more volume in the front and just texture throughout the haircut. I think I just used it all. I need more. I'm gonna be taking a vent brush, and that's gonna allow me to give him a lot more volume while I blow dry it as well. This area, as I said in the beginning, I give it the direction of back and down. So that's how I'm gonna be blow drying it as well. So I'm gonna end with some cold air. I always like to kind of seal the hair with the cold air from the blow dryer. It helps prevent damage. It helps seal in the volume that you just created. I'm going to take my texturizing shears. I know a lot of people don't like using texturizing shears. I personally like them a lot, especially with difficult hair. And it's really thick back here because all of his hair is meeting in the back. So it's nice to kind of thin it out and make it less dense. Also, especially since this is a good amount shorter and we're gonna be blending this in, it's nice to make it less dense back there without making this part too short. For anyone who says that they don't like thinning shears, texturizing shears, utilize your tools. They're important. If you know how to use them properly, you can create really awesome haircuts with them. I like them for taking out the density of the hair, for blending them. Doesn't make you any less of a hairstylist or a barber if you use these. They are created for a reason. Let's clean up over his ears and underneath his neck. So I'm gonna just comb the hair down, see what doesn't belong, and follow his hairline. Comb this out. You can see his hairline is right there. Find the bone here and just go straight down. Don't cut into their hair. And on the other side, same thing. Okay, so I'm not going to be giving him a shape or anything. I think that looks unnatural, and like someone just took like a stencil and spray painted some hair on the back of the head. So if you aren't fading it in or tapering it in with a clipper, I like to take the hair and just lift it up, and whatever is left over, whatever isn't caught in the comb, I just scoop underneath. And you can always just take this and kind of take the excess of the hairs off. And that allows them to have a nice, natural hairline. Same over here. And just follow it around. And take the comb and clipper over comb, trim over comb, whatever. Get those little last guys that don't belong there. I'll take my corner and kind of get the ones that are left over, but I'm not making a line. If they have cowlicks back here, it might be a little bit more difficult, but you'll just have to kind of go around in the direction that the cowlick is going and do some clipper over comb action until you get the right shape. I say the word cowlick a lot because it's relevant and a lot of people have them and a lot of barbers don't know how to deal with them. And again, I'm scooping up because I don't want to make any harsh cutout lines. Make sure they're looking straight and it's nice and even. I usually prefer to use clippers and to kind of taper this in to skin, but I left his hair a little bit longer today and I wanted to play with leaving it a little bit longer in the back. I'm just spinning him to check it in the mirror. And I really like the direction that his hair is going. One thing that I see are these little frills here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my shears. Sometimes you can't see how the hair is reacting dry until it's dry. So that's a big reason why I like to go over the hair after I've blow dried it. So you can kind of go in there. And this, you can see it's not because it's uneven. It's not because it wasn't cut properly. Sometimes the hair just reacts that way and kind of flips out, and you need to texturize it to blend it all in. And don't take the texturizing shears for this area because you have the tendency to just make these a little bit shorter and not have as much control as you can if you just point cut it. So I'm gonna go in this area here, bring it up, and texturize it in. And you can see they look a lot more natural and a lot more blended in and have a little bit more flow. All right, so I'm gonna clean him up. I wanna shave the back of his neck. I'm gonna use a straight razor on his cheeks. I'm gonna get a hot towel. All right, so I'm putting some shaving cream on his neck, some hot lather. And then I kind of scoop it up with my thumb rather than just like smashing it on his face. Now I've already prepared my blade, sanitized, new blade. I like to wipe the shaving cream off. He's got some moles back here, so be careful with those moles. That's always why I kind of wipe it off first. Okay, I'm gonna go to the cheeks. Again, I'm gonna wipe the cream off so I can see more of what I'm doing. The cream has already softened up the skin. Some guys also have hair really close to their eyes. Make sure you're stretching the skin really well because that skin gets a little bit more thin the closer you get to the eyes. And I'm just gonna crisp up these lines. When I'm shaving the hair, I'm double checking everything that I did throughout the haircut, just to see any little tiny details that I missed. Right here, there's like just some little hairs that I don't want to be there. This is your last chance to make them perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of beard oil. Can I put some hair product in your hair? Yeah? Rub it in your hands. Get it in there really well. His beard was a little dry today because he usually puts beard oil in, but he did not because he knew I was going to be working on it. And then just comb it through. If you have a brush, you can brush it through. Mustache comb. Whatever method you like. Just get it in there. Now I'm just going to put some clay in his hair. With clay, you really want to rub it in your hands really, really well, or else it has the potential to get clumpy in their hair, and that's hard to blend in once it's in their hair. And I start on the sides with him, but I don't mash it all in. I kind of use my fingers as a comb. And then I'll mess up the top a little bit because you want the hair product in the hair and not just on top of it. Never just get a bunch of hair product and smash it into the front of your head, or else you're going to look like in There's Something About Mary. You remember that scene? And get the excess on your hands and just kind of work it through. Sometimes I like to give his hair a direction to one side, just a little tiny bit. But since I cut it evenly everywhere, I have the freedom to put it wherever I want. I could put it straight back if I wanted to. Here, I just took the corner of my comb and went back and created just like a little tiny bit of a part. And with the puffier sides, again, back and down, because that's the direction that the hair grows, and you want to just kind of follow that. I'm pretty satisfied. You satisfied?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Great. Hey, I'm Andy. This is Greg Brzezinski's son. He doesn't have a name, so don't worry about that. We're at the Philadelphia Barber Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm going to give him a cleanup. He's growing out his hair, so we're not going to do too much to it, but we're going to clean it up really, really nice and give him a beard trim as well. So I don't want to do too much to his hair. He's growing out his hair. A lot of people have been growing out their hair lately, and I feel like they don't know how to go about getting a haircut. They're like, do I get a haircut? Do I get a cleanup? Do I just not visit the barbershop for like a year? What do I do? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean up this stuff. He almost has like, a lot of guys have this. It's like their beard meets with their neck hair and it becomes a scarf. We're gonna get rid of his scarf. And then we're also going to be kind of cleaning up around the ears here, but I'm not going to be like giving him a taper or anything. His sideburn here ends, you know, about at the top of his ear. So that's kind of where we're going to start fading his beard in, because we want these hairs to be long enough to go back with the rest of his hair. So I'm just using a trimmer. I'm not using like my full clipper right now. I don't really see myself using a full clipper with this haircut anyways. So I'm going to take my trimmer and just make that line towards his ear, because I'm going to be giving him a beard trim as well. So this is just starting my work a little bit for me. This is way too long. We're going to be doing, you want to do a 2 on your beard, right? So we're going to be doing a 2 on his beard. So I just kind of want to start that. And you can see that this comb is coming at an angle. His hairline is right here, so that's why my comb is going to be going with that line there. And I'm going to pull it out and just fade that in. And I'm going to come back to that after I do the 2 on his beard. But again, this is just starting it and starting the cleanup process around his ear. And I really don't want to take much length off of here. He's gotten to the point where his hair is finally starting to lay down. If you're growing out your hair, you know that you have to go through an awkward phase with your hair, and you just have to like sit and wait. And if I take too much off of this area, then I'm gonna bring him back to about a month of awkwardness, and that's like defeats the whole purpose of growing your hair out. He has a cowlick right here, and this hair doesn't belong. So I always like to say, you know, the hairline, if you wanna create the hairline yourself, the bone right here, just go nicely down there. And when someone's growing their hair out, I'll take my comb and bring it there at that angle, and then take the trimmer and just scoop out that hair. Don't cut into their hair, but these hairs are never really gonna, grow much longer than this. So those are the hairs that you want to get rid of and take care of, are the hairs that are never going to be one with that once it gets longer. And same with underneath here. Just take the comb, lift it up so it's out of the way, and make that hairline. And once his hair starts to get longer, and like this hair, because we're not touching it, we want it to grow. Once it starts to get longer and starts to come over and cascade down, then you don't really need to clean up that, because it's just unnecessary maintenance, unless you want to, unless it makes you feel cleaner and more groomed, I guess. But you don't, it's not necessary, unless you also want to put your hair in a ponytail or something and have it cleaned up. But it's just, again, it's just more maintenance. So I'm gonna do that same thing on this side. And so hairline here, comb, in line there. Again, I'm gonna come back around after I've done the 2 on his beard and fade that back in. And then take your comb, check out the bone on his head. That sounds kind of funny. Have it at an angle, and then just scoop that hair out. You see how short these are in comparison to this? So that's how you know they don't belong there right now. I'm trying to avoid, you know, making harsh lines. I'm not trying to give him like a shape up, line up right now, because growing your hair is all about kind of working with what you naturally have. So that's why I'm kind of scooping the hair out rather than just being like, I am making a hairline like on a Ken doll. We don't want to make you look like a Ken doll. Do you want to look like a Ken doll?
I'd rather not.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. I don't know you yet.
Oh, is this the first time you guys have met?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just like us.
Just kidding, sorry. So I also want to kind of scoop the hair, look down for me, from the back here as well. His hair, look a little less. His hair isn't coming down to reach the back of his neck yet, so we need to clean up what's exposed. And again, just kind of scoop that out. His hairline is pretty good here. I'm not gonna go up too far there. I don't wanna just have him have this like stubbly neck. But I'm gonna be trimming this up with scissors a little bit more. You see how it's kind of uneven just from, you know, lack of haircuts, which is great because then it gives me more to work with and more to shape and make the interim of this grow out process better. So I'm gonna be getting that with scissors eventually. I'm gonna be cutting his hair dry. If his hair was longer and I would be giving him, you know, more of a formal haircut, like a haircut, I would wet his hair and take more length off, and I would section it more and do that. That's a whole other thing that we're not doing right now. So I'm gonna cut it dry because I wanna see how his hair reacts naturally. Did you blow dry your hair today?
No.
No, so he just woke up, put some stuff in it, and rolled with it. And I'm assuming that's what he's gonna be doing after this. So I wanna cut it dry because of that. So I'm gonna focus on the back of his neck right now. I need you to look down, but not a lot. Ooh, look, a gray hair. You're turning into your father. It's like the Lion King.
Is there actually gray hair?
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like a monkey right now, just like.
Is it gray or really blonde?
Oh no, it's. Can I pull it out?
Yeah.
Wait. There's a couple in there.
That's so fine. You sure they're not just like too blonde? Today's not been a good day for me.
Okay, I'm gonna position your head to where I want it. There. Okay, so you see these guys here. I want those to be gone, but I'm not gonna cut across and make a line. So I'm gonna take my comb, and it's nice and clean from what we just did, so I don't have to worry about fading that in with shears. So I'm gonna take it and just get those little baby guys. And by pulling the hair away, I'm avoiding making that Ken doll line. I hope you know what I'm referring to now, since I said Ken doll, but.
I can pop up a picture.
Yeah, just, no, we don't want that. We don't want it. So I want to create kind of more of a layered effect, so I'm just gonna keep going up a little bit. And I don't, like I said, I don't want to take too much off. I don't want to ruin any progress, but I do want to clean this up for him. And so these little guys, I can just kind of take and point cut. Stuff that the shears didn't grab. He's got this little wing right here. I'm gonna take it. You can kind of see that it's at an angle right now. So I like to use my finger as like a rest. So just kind of go along and point cut it in. These take some patience sometimes. It's not gonna just be like one chop and they're gone. You're gonna have to cut it, comb it a little bit, see what's left over, figure out which angle you need to go in to get it. And I'm gonna do that on this side as well. So see, this has a nice shape to it, but it's not just a straight line. It's a little jagged, but it's like a organized jagged. And then again, I'm just gonna kind of point cut around. This isn't a precision haircut. This isn't, like your typical, everything has a place and the lines are super crisp. That's not what I want. What I want is for, oh my God, what I want, what I want is for him to run his fingers through his hair and it to fall anywhere and be okay, not for it to look perfect. I want it to be perfectly messy. And I'm just kind of texturizing the bottom here so it doesn't get too heavy. He still has some growth to go for this to overlap and come down. So in the meantime, you can kind of texturize this and make it a little bit lighter. This is the heaviness that we want to come down. So especially in the summertime, it gets really, really hot back here. Do you find yourself getting kind of sweaty?
Oh, whenever I go to the gym first place, that's always.
It's right here. Yeah. Sorry for smacking your neck. Just making sure you're awake. So if you make it a little bit lighter, it's easier on them, and they're not going to get to the point, hopefully, where they're like, screw this, I'm shaving my head. They're going to continue to grow it out. Mm-hmm. Have you had that moment yet?
Yeah. There was one day I just wasn't feeling my hair. I just went and got like a 1 on the side and just was going to give up like 6 months of progress.
But you didn't do it.
Yeah, just because the barbershop was closed. It was a Sunday.
Do you see the difference?
No, I do.
Just a little bit?
I can see in the back. It doesn't work.
Whenever I looked
whenever I looked in the mirror, I would see that. I was like, oh, that doesn't look good.
Cool. So, that's my goal that's why I cut hair, because I want you to look in the mirror and see a difference. Screw what anyone else thinks, right? I don't care. I want you to look in the mirror and feel good about it, because I barely did anything, but that was the whole point of this. That's what I wanted to do. Do you want any texture on top? Do you want any length off the top? You don't need it, but if you want to add a little bit of texture, we could make it a little bit lighter, because you have a lot of hair.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know how much I should do. I mean,
Let me just add a little bit of texture here, just for the sake of making it a little bit lighter. Like I said, you have a ton of hair.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be in your face for a second.
That's fine.
Oh, Karen. Manager? Where's the manager? Can I speak with the manager, please? So, I'm not gonna take any length off. I just wanna point cut this and make it a little bit thinner. I could use my thinning shears, but I think we could manually do this a little bit better. So, I'm just gonna be slicing in there. So see, there's no length coming off. And this is completely vertical. You know, I'm not going across there. As long as you are holding the hair completely up and your shears are pointing down, you will be fine. I'm gonna get this front section that I just put into his eyeballs and do the same thing. And because I'm not taking any length off, I can kind of do this in any location of his hair. The sectioning isn't too critical because there's no guideline for me to follow. It's just, I'm thinning it out without using the thinning shears. So I can just kind of go around and do that. And you feel his hair, feel where it feels a little thick, or look in the mirror and see where it's, it's a little chunky right there. Okay, so I don't want to just keep chopping into your hair. I'm pretty satisfied on how it looks. There's still some long hairs right behind his ears, but I don't want to cut those because if you cut those, then they're going to be annoying for him and they're going to be stubby and you're not going to be able to kind of move them around. And you want to be able to kind of tuck it behind your ear. And when his hair gets longer, then those can move around more, and that's going to be part of his hairstyle rather than it being an annoyance. I'm talking to them. I'm not talking to you. You just keep,
Just a habit.
I'm just kidding.
Acknowledging.
I'm being mean. I've had a long day, and I'm taking it out on you. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's move on to his beard. Let's do that. So he wants a 2 on his beard. I'm not going to put him back. Usually for a beard trim, I'll kind of put them back. I'm going to show you what I'm doing, so I'm going to keep him upright. 2. And I think this was faded in properly on our part. I might go back over and just make sure that that's seamless there. Kind of going around, getting all the stuff. I'm gonna fade this in. I'm gonna be giving him a line here. He says he likes a straight razor. He shaves with a straight razor, so I'm gonna do that for him as well. But I don't want to make a line, and then I'm not a fan of there being like a big corner right on their jaw. So I'm gonna fade that in naturally because we have the ability to do so. And I'm gonna keep going around. Okay, so that's the basic length that we're gonna work with. Might go back around with the scissors just to make sure I have all of the little hairs happening. His mustache is sparse as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make it an appropriate length with my comb and trimmer. Just kind of bring it up and get those little hairs and then line it up over his lip naturally. So he still has some hair there. You don't want to bring your lines down too low, right? Just kind of get what doesn't need to be there. As a rule of thumb, I usually say go to the corner of the mouth and no lower than that, unless, I mean, everyone's facial hair is different. Everyone's facial hair grows in a different pattern and a different thickness. So generally it's the corner of the mouth and I'll just go up and follow their hairline. But you know, sometimes it's really patchy here and they hate it. So you have to go down a little bit lower. Sometimes they want to take the mustache off and just follow this line there, but that's not the case here. So do exactly what I did on that other side here. And before I take this off, I'm not entirely sure I want to take it off yet. I want to see what it looks like just a little bit shorter. Before you just go like taking stuff off of people's faces, play with the length a little bit. See, that looks fine. That looks a little bit more natural. It doesn't look like, because I'm not really shaving your mustache off. Yeah. If I was shaving your mustache off, I would take that off too, but we're leaving it. So let's just leave it a little bit shorter like that. So again, corner of the mouth. I use the same strategy to look for long hairs on the beard as I would to look for crumbs on a countertop. So you gotta like see it from the angle, you know, get down, get into it. Okay. So he wants a line. I'm gonna make the line first, and then I'm gonna fade this in, and then clean up his lines with the straight razor. So since we did a 2, I'm gonna grab my 1.5 and just start working my way down. And the direction that I'm going is, you know, towards this area because his line is going to be coming down there. Is that okay on your neck, how I'm having you positioned? Okay. That was open because I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to take a chunk out of his facial hair. I'm going to do that on the same side since I already have this guard on. This is open, which is basically a 2. Close it, make it a 1.5. 000, no guard. You can kind of see where his lines are going to be, so I just want to lightly touch it. Give myself a guideline, open it, and flick up. Use your corners here because it's, you know, not like a flat surface like the head is. This is just like a super subtle fade. Not everyone has these corners coming out, so this doesn't apply to everybody. One open and just slowly start fading that in. I'm using the corner again just because the angles are a little weird. Closed it, full 1. I'm going to do that on the other side. That was open, this is now closed. We're getting there. I just want to take my half guard and kind of use the corner and fade that in a little bit more. I'm going to start on this side. This is open, so it's basically a 1, but just, you know, to be cautious. Now close. Some hairs you have to, you know, follow the way that it grows. So this is growing in this way, so I got to come at it from that angle. It's open. And just kind of play around with the corners of his face. What we're doing. Okay, now I want to make the line. It's possible to make the line on the beard while they're back. For some reason, people aren't aware on how to sit straight back with their neck up. So I recently have been making the line while they're sitting up and just tell them, like, sit super straight and then just look up. It's not too comfortable on their neck, so you got to do it kind of with the quickness. But it's much better than putting them back, making your line, doing the nice straight razor line up, and then putting them up and having them look up, and it's like, What are you doing? So I'm gonna make the line while he's sitting up. Okay, now look up a little bit. His Adam's apple is right here. So his hair doesn't grow below that, that's good. Look straight again. You can see if you come from this angle that this is where that 90-degree angle sits. And I want that line to be right at that corner there. Because when he's looking forward like this, you want to see the beard here, but you don't want to see the beard line there. You want it to be right at that neck crease. So look up. Kind of take it away. You want to keep it a little bit, maybe too low at first. You can always bring the line up, but you don't ever want to bring it up too high because then it just looks a little silly. So these hairs are a little too long for my liking. I'm going to take my comb, scoop them out, and cut them. How's your neck? Is it okay? Mm-hmm. You've got like a little patch here. Don't worry about that. Just as long as your line is straight and you're cleaning it up properly. That's what we're looking for. Yeah. How do you feel about your line?
Looks good.
Okay. And the length on the beard, how's that?
Good.
Looks like a 2, right?
Yeah.
Great. And the mustache, we did what we could.
Yeah.
Same with this. Okay, cool. I'm gonna get this hair off of him, then I'm gonna put him back. I'm gonna make a hot towel because it's the end of the day and we clean our shop properly and there aren't any hot towels, so I'm gonna make one. I'm also gonna blow dry this hair off. If you leave the hair on the cape and then you give them a hot towel, sometimes the hair will collect, the towel will collect the hair when you put it on their face and then it just looks like they have this hairy towel on their face and it's gross. This is a headrest, not a cartoon-sized mallet. Okay, now go back one. Okay, and while I'm preparing my towel, I'm gonna put some pre-shave oil on his shave areas. This is just a mixture basically of castor oil and jojoba oil. It's gonna soften up the skin and prepare it for the blade. He asked, is this position supposed to be comfortable? It's not supposed to be like uncomfortable, but I like to have the headrest here because I need this area to be available and exposed and stretched a little bit more than if his neck were to be in a regular position. It makes for a closer shave and less razor burn. So lift your head up for me. If this were to be up higher, put your head down. You see how I have less area to get around and stretch his skin and get up in there. So I know it's not the most comfortable, but it's better than your head being here and then you still having to do this anyways. Okay. Hot towel. If I'm not shaving the mustache, I like to just put it over the neck. Like this. Take this, one corner over the eyeball, other corner over the eyeball. And that's really all you need. Like I said, unless you're doing the mustache, you'd put it over the lip and not cover their nose because you don't want to kill your client and suffocate them, but that's fine. How you doing in there?
I'm doing pretty well.
Okay. And take that off. I'm going to start on the neck because the neck's more sensitive than the cheeks, and I want to keep it as hot of skin as possible. So I'm going to take his skin and stretch it. Do you have sensitive skin at all?
No.
Okay. And it's not really that thick. If he had thicker, coarser hair or sensitive skin, I wouldn't be going against the grain right away. I would be going with the grain, and then I would give him a couple more hot towels and then go against the grain. But this area is usually a little sensitive, so I'm just gonna go with it. See, this patch here almost makes it look like the line's not even, but it is. He's just got a patch neck. Totally normal. Cheeks are a bit easier, just don't go down too far and ruin the lines that you had made.
So I definitely need to start using pre-shave when I use a straight razor.
You're not?
No, it's just, oh, it's okay. The blade's sliding, we're fine.
Do you even watch Beardbrand?
No, I do. I just had never watched the shaving videos because I didn't shave my beard with a straight razor.
Wow. Okay, now he's all lined up. I'm gonna give him a cold towel to close his pores. You never want to like shave the first layer of someone's skin off, because that's essentially what you're doing. And then just leave their pores open to be exposed to God knows what. So we're gonna get a cold towel. This has a little bit of lemon on it. So if you see any like this yellow stuff, that's lemon. Put it over his mouth. If you're doing a full hot shave, it's kind of where you want it. Can you breathe, sir? Are you okay? Okay, just checking. Clear. Now, this is the point where you wait and just stare at your client, and they don't know. And then I'll take this cold towel and just kind of wipe any excess hair off their face, neck. You smell like a lemon. And the skin's gonna be kind of wet still, so you can just kind of fan it dry. I wanna put some talc on his skin, but I don't wanna put it on like extremely wet. Do you feel like you're on a beach being fanned by a palm tree?
I've never had the fans part at a beach, so.
What if I fed you a grape?
Drinking out of a coconut, I think would do it.
I don't have a coconut. I put my talc powder in a little salt shaker, or else it just comes out way too fast. People are like, what do you just use on me? Salt? I'm like, no, what do you think who do you think I am?
Oh, that's good. That's not where my mind went.
Oh. And put him up. Put him, sit up. So now I'm just gonna stare at him and make sure that I got everything. Take my shears. If there's any, little long hairs that the clipper missed, just wanna like play with your hair a little bit, make sure it's falling randomly, appropriately. Appropriate randomness.
Good texture.
Yeah. And see, it's clean here. That's what we want. I'm still gonna shave the back of his neck with the straight razor. But really, I didn't want to do too much to his hair. I've probably said that 10 times. And that's fine, because this wasn't a haircut, it was a cleanup. He's growing his hair out. Let the man grow his hair out. Great, so I'm gonna clean him up, shave the back of his neck. Is there anything else you were looking for today?
No.
Do you feel clean?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm just going back over those areas. Getting a little sticky here with the hair. The straight razor. So if you're growing your hair out, don't laugh at me, Victor. If you're growing your hair out, oh wait, his name's Karen. If you're growing your hair out and you come to the barbershop and you still want something to be done, you still want to look presentable, maybe you have like a corporate job or something, don't be sad if you don't get like a full haircut or it feels like they didn't do anything, because that's what they're supposed to do. If they do a bunch, then they actually probably are harming your haircut. It's like you don't ruin the progress that you've made just because you think that that's how it should be. You can always cut more off too. So if someone just cleans you up and makes it look presentable, you can always ask them to take more off. But really, if you're growing your hair out, you shouldn't be cutting a lot of hair off. I'm just looking at his sideburns, making sure that those are blended in. I'm gonna go over them just a little bit. This is the 2. This is where I initially kind of faded it in. I'm just gonna go back over it and blend that in a little bit more. Are you satisfied?
Yes.
Great, I'm satisfied. He had some stuff in his hair. When people have stuff in their hair, I don't like to put more stuff in their hair. I think he can just kind of rock what's going on with it. Also, usually after haircuts or being in the barbershop, people want to take a shower and get all the little hairs out, which is understandable. Hair is itchy and annoying. But good job on growing your hair. I just met you and I'm proud of you. You're eating your vegetables.
Probably not as many as
All right, well. There we go. There he is. What's up, everyone? My name's Andy. This is Frank. We're at the Philadelphia Barber Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm going to be giving him a haircut with mainly shears with the fade in the back, and we're gonna make him look exceptionally handsome. So this cut, I'm gonna be using mainly shears, but I do wanna fade in the back naturally. So I'm going to be using a 6 on my wall cordless designer. I'm going to be going around his ears and leaving it really low here. By using the clipper around the ear, it allows it to get completely even and a lot tighter, because this is an area that tends to be a problem growing out initially for most people. It'll start to get puffy and frizzy and kind of get over the ear. So this will allow me to get it a little bit cleaner and also get this fade tighter. But the rest, about an inch above the ear, is going to be all shear work to give it kind of nice flow and texture. So I'm just going around the ear, not too high. And I'm keeping it really low back here. By fading it in the back, you kind of prevent the client from getting a mullet too soon. You can kind of tug on it. It makes their haircut
And we
last
wouldn't
longer.
want anyone on Beardbrand to have a mullet.
No mullets allowed. There's no mullets allowed on
I don't know if you know,
Beardbrand.
but the CEO has a mullet.
Mullets are terrible! No, I'm just kidding.
Eric?
Well, if you're opting for the non-mullet option, fading in the back of the neck is great. So again, just really light over the ear, just to kind of give myself a guideline for my shear work. You can do this with shears, but I prefer to use my clipper. I can get over the ear easier, and it'll help me with that fade. So I'm just gonna keep going down in guard numbers. This is a 5. Can you look down a little bit? Yeah. And you're just gonna fade it in, just like any other fade. This one is a little bit more time consuming because I'm starting with the 6 and going all the way down to skin. I'm just gonna kind of keep going down. It's important also to flick up and away, because you don't want the lower a number, the more hair you're gonna take off. And you don't want to bring your line up higher, and then their hairline's gonna be all the way up here, and that doesn't look natural or good. You can see he has a couple cowlicks here. You gotta be really careful of where you're putting your clipper. I'll probably come back around with my shears and clean that up better to better suit the cowlick on the back of the neck. So I'm leaving this with a 2. And then I come back around with 0. And I'm gonna make my line not too high because you want it to be as natural as possible. And you open it all the way. Flick up, don't go too high. Some of his hair, grows kind of in a spiral, so if it's growing up, then you kind of flip it down and go with the way that the hair naturally goes. 1, all the way open for about a 1.5. And go around with this cowlick. And since his hair is longer, I like to manually fade it in so I don't keep bringing the fade up with the guards. So I'll get kind of that excess hair, that chunk like right there, and just scoop it out. So I'll be coming back to this just slightly when I have my shears, so I can see what hairs don't belong, and I can kind of get them one by one, especially, I keep saying, with that cowlick area. So next, I'm going to use my wall mag to get around his ears. Even though this is a longer hairstyle, and I usually don't like to crop in the ears too much because it'll puff out, his hair is fine enough where it's not going to do that. So we did that 6 there. I'm going to get around his ear. Brush the hair down so you can see where the long hairs are. If you just kind of go without brushing it down, you're going to miss some. Don't be afraid to hold anyone's ear down either. It's better to get it out of the way, and most people's ears are pretty flexible. Same thing with the back. You kind of see that excess there. Just scoop it out. And it'll give you a cleaner line. He has a little bit of facial hair now, so I'm just going to blend that in to what he has going on naturally. Maybe get a little bit of these guys. We're not doing a full beard trim or anything today, but I will just kind of clean up his little cheek hairs as a courtesy.
Appreciate it.
So I'm really all about keeping natural hairlines and not messing with the lines too much. So I don't want to cut into the hairline here. Just kind of want to follow what he already has and clean up those long hairs. So you can see it's a natural line, but it's cleaned up. I like to wet the hair. As you could see before, he had a wave in his hair. So I want to get as even of a cut as possible. And by seeing the hair wet and combing it down, you're straightening it out. And you can cut it more evenly that way. So I'm going to focus on the next section, which is going to be right around here. And you can see the corner of his head right here where his hair starts to grow down rather than back. So I'm just going to separate it with my comb and push it over and get it out of the way. So first, I'm going to take the hair with my fingers and see how much I want to cut off. And I'm going to cut about that much off. I'm going to be coming around with scissor over comb later, but this gives me a really good guideline and base. You can see that's where my line is. I'm going to stop about there, and then brush down. And you can see kind of where the discrepancies are right there. So you're going to take your shear over comb, kind of snip that away. There's a lot of volume in here right now. At the very end, after I blow dry his hair, I'm going to be showing you how to take the volume out there, but right now we're just focusing on making it an even cut so you don't cut into it and make it look lopsided and uneven. So you can see it's longer right here. This is our clipper work, and we want it to have a nice even blend. You can see where the longer pieces are right here. And when you comb it down, you can see exactly where those longer pieces are. Go to the other side. Again, there's that corner of the hairline. Straight backs, over. About the same amount off. Again, you can see where it's long. Same motion as when we were kind of getting over the ear with the comb. You're scooping it out, but getting it with your shears. You can see it has movement that we want. It's all blended. There's no uneven parts. And then move to the back. Can you look down for me? There you go. So you can see this is where my clipper work stopped. This is kind of the hair that was left over. So we're going to do the same thing that we did on the sides. You see that doesn't belong. And then follow your guideline. This is your guideline. And as I mentioned, I was going to come back with my shear work here because I wanted to make it look as natural as possible. And you can manipulate it a little bit better with your shears. You can always come back and do more, but take off as little as possible, or else you're going to put a hole in the work that you just did, and then you have to kind of fade it in all over again. This pesky cowlick. Kind of come from the side and texturize it in rather than cutting it bluntly, and it will blend in a lot better, and it'll also grow in a lot better. Clients can't really see the back of their head. Usually they don't care what it looks like as much, but from a barber standpoint, you should definitely care what it looks like because it reflects your work. The cleaner that is, the better job you've done. So this is still a little bit longer here. With his hair, we're going to be pushing it all back. So I like to leave it a little bit lower anyways, but this still isn't blended in completely. So we're going to come back around a little bit higher than where we just were and keep blending it in. Let's move to the top. You can already see that his haircut has a lot better movement here by getting that in, and it's meeting in the back nicely too. We're going to be getting this and evening it up, but first we're going to work from the front. Since this is a longer hairstyle, we're not going to be cutting a lot off from the front or the top really. We're going to be trimming it and adding a lot of texture so it's not too heavy. So come from the front. I sectioned about maybe 2 inches in. We're going to take about 2 inches, an inch and a half of texture, and instead of cutting it bluntly, I'm going to point cut it. So you can see there's some inconsistencies there, but that's what we want. Now I'm going to take that exact section, bring it all the way up, and texturize about an inch off. Now when I get to the back here, instead of bringing it up in that direction, I'm going to cross-check it. And you can see the discrepancy in the length there. So point cut it again. Frank has really fine hair, so adding as much texture as possible is key so it doesn't look flat and lifeless almost. Not that you're a lifeless human. But you want it to be kind of fun and be able to move around in any direction, really. rather than just back. Now I'm blending this top piece into what we just worked with our shear over comb. And if you take your fingers, you can see what spots you missed. Like this ridge, for example. That's a prime example. Now we're going to blend the top into the sides. So before we took the section right at the corner, now we're going to go up a little bit higher and brush that down. I'm not going to be blending in, I'm not going to be cutting off this big of a chunk, but it does give me a guideline of how far I can bring it up, because I don't want to pass that, or else we're going to be making this section the same length as that, and then it's not a longer haircut. If you're giving a new style to someone, then the amount of hair that's going to be coming off is going to vary. But you know you're not cutting too much off when all the pieces of hair around you look pretty much the same length. You don't want to go too short in the front either, or else these hairs are going to be too short to be pulled back. They're going to be like this, and you don't want that. You want it to have enough length and heaviness to be able to sit back on its own. Before I blow dry his hair, I want to make sure that this is even. We didn't go too short on one side. Pull it away from the head. You can kind of feel if your hands are at the same length, and if there's too much excess coming from your fingers on one side, then you know that that side's too long. This looks about even. Okay, so I'm going to blow dry his hair, then I'm going to go back around and just kind of blend in some of the puffier parts just from his hair being dense. I'm going to use a light grooming spray to give it a light hold and very light texture. Light is kind of the key word because I don't want to weigh it down. Again, he has fine hair, and fine hair tends to lay flat rather than have volume, so you have to create the volume for them. I like to move the hair around as much as possible when I'm blow drying it, as if I'm planning on him running his fingers through his hair and putting it in every direction, so I can see the haircut from all angles and visualize how he's going to be wearing it on a day-to-day basis. So we're already pretty good here, but we can make it even better. You're going to take your texturizing shears. Always make sure when you do this it's a texturizing shears, because you don't want to make the mistake of chopping into your hard work. Kind of get this hair out of the way. You can see where the puffiness starts. You're just going to go right into it. You can also do it with your fingers, and you can see just how much hair is coming off. Some sides might be puffier than others, or the other side, because of the cowlick. So you might have to thin it out a little bit more on one side, but don't overdo it or else it's going to be completely different. Now at the bottom here, it's still kind of heavy, but it's even, and I want to make sure that it isn't too dense, because all of his hair is collecting here, from the front, from the sides, it's all meeting right here. Unless you're going to be doing a ducktail kind of style, which we don't necessarily go for. I have styled your hair with a ducktail before, haven't I? Yeah. I want it to be a little less dense, so I'm going to take my texturizing shears and bring it all the way up. Especially right here where our clipper work meets our shear work, we want it to have a nice consistent blend. So you can go over that, and you can kind of chop into this area with the texturizing shears without fearing that you're going to take too much hair off. But don't get scissor happy, or else you will eventually put a hole into their hair. I always like to cross-check the hair when it's dry, because clients, for the most part, are wearing their hair in a dry style rather than wet, and you want to make sure that it looks perfect in all regards. So when I'm done with his hair, I like to just kind of play around with it, as if he were to be messing it up himself. You can throw it to the side, comb it back, and it's still blended. Comb it to this side, back, still blended, straight back, and it's still blended. I know he wears it a little bit messier.
Yeah, that's the look.
Yeah, the hair on the forehead. And I still need to shave his neck, but you just want to make sure that he's all in there. I always end with a warm towel around the neck. It helps soften the skin, soften the hair, which makes for an easier shave. And from what I'm told, it feels pretty dang good. So I've already prepared my blade, sanitized it and everything. Hot lather right around the neck. And I always like to wipe it off with my thumb first so I know exactly where I'm going. I don't want to cut into the fade that we just did. So kind of wipe it off. You can see where you need to shave. The skin is still supple from the hot towel and from the hot lather, so you'll be fine. And there's still some left on there and you'll be scraping it off. Did you want any hair product? No?
If you want for the video.
I kind of like how your hair is naturally. Maybe we'll do some hair tonic just to kind of bring the puff down. Hair tonic's one of my favorite hair products. I use it on almost everyone, unless you're doing a matte, messy style. It helps control some of the puff and helps you manipulate your hair a little bit better. I try to avoid putting it in the front or else it's gonna look like you have like a greasy front piece of the hair. And if you play with your hair enough, you're gonna get the oils off your hands into the front anyway, so you don't wanna add on to that. But you can see how much I can manipulate it. The texture is coming through. It adds a little bit of a natural shine. And it will make his hair not frizzy, not puffy, and it'll be good to go all day. Feel good?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Ta-da! You have a haircut.